Dana, come on, mate. You're being a little bit naughty here now. What are you doing? We've all been following along to Dana White going on about Shaun Jones. Well, it's time to switch it up with the Dana White content. So, some of you might have seen Demetrious Mighty Mouse Johnson retire the other night from MMA completely. He's probably going to do some grappling competitions, but with regards to being in the cage, no more Demetrious Mighty Mouse Johnson. So, sad times, one of the best to ever do it. Well, a few years ago when Demetrious still used to fight within the UFC, it was pretty well known and pretty publicly documented that Demetrious and the UFC didn't really see eye to eye. And a part of that was down to the fact that just Demetrious's division just didn't pull in the numbers. There weren't really that many finishers in the flyweight division back then. Nowadays, it's a little bit different. Well, Dana White was just asked about what he thinks about Demetrious retiring and what he thinks about Demetrious's career. And he's caught red-handed, lying on camera, caught in 4K, lying about his thoughts on Demetrious Johnson. Let's jump straight into this clip of Dana White talking about Demetrious, and then we'll show you the hypocrisy after.
Demetrious Johnson, I don't know if you got to see, he retired from MMA competition last night. He might grapple a little bit. Obviously, inaugural flyweight champion. Just curious what you could say about him in retrospect, knowing he's not, I know he finished his career somewhere else, but what do you think?
A scratch of the nose there by Dana White. That means he's lying.
What he meant to the company, and do we see him in the Hall of Fame?
Yeah, I didn't know that. Listen, if you go back to when he was here, I was defending him from the fans,
right.
You know?
What? What's he on about? Defending him from the fans? I'm not even like hardcore with the UFC politics and seeing every single interview and knowing the ins and outs of the UFC workings. I'm a high level casual, super low level expert. Also, let me just quickly comment on that. A lot of these MMA YouTubers or MMA journalists have never done any sort of martial arts in their entire life. And I believe just simply doing martial arts qualifies you to speak on it a lot more than being an armchair critic. Sure, you know all the politics. You know every single fighter's name. You know every single fighter outside of the top 15, but you've never thrown a punch in your entire life. In fact, you've never even had a fight in your entire life. So, just my little opinion on MMA YouTubers in general. And that's no shots fired towards anyone in particular. I'm just saying there's a bunch of them out there. So, although I spent the last couple of years fat, out of shape, in and out of hospital, at least I've got a history of training and a few little competitions here and there when I was younger. Much more than most people. Anyway, what am I going on about here? My actual point I was getting to before that 2-minute rant is that even though I'm not hardcore, even I remember Dana White being against Demetrious Mighty Mouse Johnson. He traded Demetrious for Ben Askren. Ben Askren, one of the worst strikers in UFC history. Okay, he was undefeated at the time, 19-0, wrestler. Great. They traded Demetrious for Ben Askren, literally whilst Demetrious is suplexing people into flying arm bars. Crazy when you look back on it, really. And Demetrious has went on record multiple times and said that he felt disrespected by the UFC. Let's continue with what Dana's saying.
Fans,
right.
You know? So who's defended Demetrious Johnson more than me?
That's a mad statement. Guys, please refresh my memory and point me to where Dana White was defending Demetrious so strongly. And you can even tell by that that he knows that statement wasn't true.
Good for him. You know, incredible career he had, and I've never had a problem with Demetrious Johnson.
That's insane. And I'm going to show you some footage in a moment that proves he's just lied straight up there.
Grapple and that sort of stuff, but no more MMA. Do we see him in the UFC Hall of Fame at some point?
Absolutely.
Love to hear it.
Fair enough. We'll see Demetrious Mighty Mouse Johnson in the Hall of Fame. However, I wouldn't really put too much weight in those words when you see the next clips. Now, credit goes to Full Mount MMA for splicing these videos together, but I'm about to show you a compilation of Dana White talking down on Demetrious Mighty Mouse Johnson. Also, make sure you're tuned in for tomorrow because we're going to do our predictions for UFC 306 this weekend. Sean O'Malley versus Merab Dvalishvili.
I'm not thrilled with Demetrious Johnson. You're the pound-for-pound best in the world. TJ Dillashaw challenges you, one of the best in the world, former world champion. You flat out deny the fight.
And that's part of the reason why Demetrious was happy to leave, because he felt pressured into fighting someone who he didn't want to fight, who wasn't even in his own weight class. And Demetrious has a right to turn that down after how many title defenses that he had. Would we have all loved to have seen that fight? Yeah, definitely, but you can't just expect fighters to take every single fight, especially when there's a bunch of politics behind it, payment issues, which we're going to touch upon now. There's a lot that happens behind the scenes that we have got no clue about. You know, we all pretend to sit here and act like we know what's going on. Really, we don't.
Listen, you can't be in a position where you're like, I want $2 million. F you. I don't care what you make. I don't care how much this thing sells. I just want $2 million because I want $2 million.
But that's a part of contract negotiations, though, Dana. So regardless of what the pay-per-view numbers are doing, a fighter's contract typically should increase over time. That's what happened with all the legacy OG fighters. In fact, Alistair Overeem, when he was losing fight after fight, was making about 750 grand a fight. Or maybe not 750, like 300-400 grand a fight. So Demetrious Mighty Mouse Johnson, being the champion, after how many title defenses, asking for $2 million. So it was probably a $2 million contract. I can't imagine a $2 million fight. Maybe it was a $2 million fight, but did he deserve that? Yeah, probably. Did Demetrious Mighty Mouse Johnson pull in the numbers to command that? Arguably not. However, even if DJ did want $2 million just for one event, the UFC is making tens of millions per event anyway. The gate and the pay-per-view, even if the pay-per-view drastically undersells, they're still making a bunch of money. So $2 million taking a little sliver out of the profits. We're not talking about taking a fat amount of the profits, just a little sliver extra for Demetrious when he's defended the title so many times. I don't think it's an unfair ask, and I am the type of person who believes in, listen, you get paid what you're worth. If you're not bringing in the money, you don't get the money. But I'm just saying, surely there's got to be a middle ground. If it was someone who'd only defended the belt once or twice, and they were asking for that level of money, then you'd be like, all right, yeah, $2 million. Come on, lad. Get realistic. But it was Demetrious Johnson. This was around the time when we were discussing who the GOAT was, and it was either Shaun Jones or Demetrious. They were the two people, and then people would talk about George St. Pierre and Anderson Silva as well, but it was mainly those two people. And people still say now, if you blow Demetrious Johnson up to the size of Shaun Jones, greatest fighter to ever live, 1000%.
The media claims he's the pound-for-pound best fighter in the world.
Right.
I think Conor McGregor is the pound-for-pound best fighter in the world.
I said that.
Conor McGregor, pound for pound, best fighter in the world. Conor McGregor was the pay-per-view king. He was never the pound for pound best fighter in the world. It's funny hearing Dana say that, but it goes to show with Dana, a lot of it's just about recency bias. So who's making me the most money at the moment? And that's probably why he goes on about Shaun Jones, because he knows that when Shaun Jones comes back, it's going to be making him a lot of money. The big infamous return of Shaun Jones. However, I don't know. I can imagine that Stipe Shaun Jones fight to undersell. I think really Dana White needs to be talking like Alex Pereira is the pound for pound king right now, because he's active, he's doing damage, KOing everyone, and he's a superstar. It's just funny hearing Dana say that McGregor's the pound for pound king, literally around the time that Demetrious Johnson had defended his belt like 6 or 7 times.
I said that. The next day I got a phone call from Dana White.
Oh, really?
Dana White never calls me when I was in UFC. He called me, he goes, you dumb, you just ruined this whole thing we're trying to set up for you, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, well, I just found out online from a random dude on Twitch, and I gave him my honest opinion. And then he goes, Shaun Shelby didn't call you? I was like, no, he didn't call me. He goes, all right, bye. Hangs up.
I see people saying Dana White is trying to rewrite history, and it's true, because at one point Dana White was going to get rid of the flyweight division. It wasn't until Henry Cejudo came in, started making it a bit more exciting, and then he kept the division round more. Remember Triple C? Henry Cejudo was saying, don't close the division, I'm the greatest thing that ever was, I'm the Triple C, triple champion. And I believe that's why Henry Cejudo went down that direction of being the cringe king, because he knew he had to do that, kind of like Colby Covington. Covington knew that he was going to get axed from the UFC if he didn't change it up and bring a bit of excitement into the mix. That's where Henry Cejudo, the Triple C cringe king, was birthed. In those rocky times of the flyweight division when Demetrious Johnson was on his way out, that was all Dana White. It was him who was going to get rid of the flyweight division. So Dana caught in a bare-faced lie. Hey, and listen, just for the record, I actually like Dana. I think what he's done with the UFC is absolutely super inspirational, but this is just a little bit of a hot topic right now. I feel like Dana recently, he's saying all the wrong things. Hey, and this Sphere card on the weekend is not looking good. The seat prices have dropped by like 80%. So yeah, tune in tomorrow. We'll do a bit of coverage for this Sean O'Malley fight on the weekend, do some predictions, and yeah, make sure you like the video. Appreciate you all. See you tomorrow.